Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our panel. Mom and Dad go to school too. Parent Scholar virtual panels as vehicles to support persistence. My name is Tomas Hernandez. I'm a graduate of CSUN. I did my thesis on art and solar panels and their effect in barrio communities. I'm a father of a type 1 diabetic. I also have another daughter who's 7, and I am currently married to my wife, Jessica. I'd like to pass it on to my colleague, Aymie Guerrero.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Aymie Guerrero, and I'm currently a doctoral student at CSUN in the Educational Leadership and Policy Studies Department. I have 2 children, and I actually became a parenting student when I was an undergrad here at CSUN in 2010. I'm going to pass it over to Esther.
Good morning. My name is Esther Ramirios, and I'm also a doctoral student in the same program as Aymie at California State University Northridge in the Educational Leadership and Policy Studies program. My dissertation is focused around the experiences of parenting students of color at a 4-year university. I'm also a child of a parent scholar. It took my father 11 years to get that degree. And so as his daughter, I was able to experience with him his challenges, but then also his successes as he worked towards achieving that dream. So that's really what drives my interest in parenting scholar experiences.
I would like to welcome everybody to sit with me and begin an opening invocation. The reason why this is important is because first we would like to do a land acknowledgement and thank the people of the land, the stewards of the land that were here long before us. If you look at the picture behind me as well as the one in front of you, you'll see a dry creek bed. This is in Piru, California. I live in Oxnard, California, the home of the Chumash. I just want to bring up 2 things. One, that we're in a severe drought, so save water if possible. 2, if you look at the picture, you'll see a bunch of river stones together. Once upon a time, those river stones were part of a larger mountain. And as the rains come down, they broke down, and now they sit in the riverbed. Today, we're much like those stones. We're all from different areas. We're all in these little cubes together on Zoom, sitting next to each other like these river stones. After this is all over, much like these stones, as the water comes, they'll move away and go their way. So we just really want to be thankful for the land. We want to be thankful for the Tatavian, the Chumash, the Alone, and the Modoc people. And we just really want to say, as we put forward our seeds, our children, that we live the earth in a better way that we found it for them. Thank you very much. So let's see who's in the room with us today. As you can see right now in front of you, there is a bunch of different ways to identify. If you could please, if anything catches your eye, please type that into the chat. I'll list some of them and say them out loud. If you hear them and you want to type them into the chat, please do. If you're an expecting mother or father, hey, congratulations. I hope everything goes really well. If you're a father, if you're a mother scholar, father or mother scholar, please type that into the chat. Grandparent, foster parent, a parent scholar supporter, a child of a parent scholar, a community member, or faculty or staff. If you're faculty or staff of a college, please list what department and also what college you're with. And finally, a parent scholar ally. These are some of the most important people in my life. These are the people who have surrounded me with love and support. They're always there to have a good word for me and just really want me to see myself do better and go on. For myself, it would be onto the PhD, but I have a bunch of allies that are more than willing to support me as that process goes forward. And finally, we just really want to define what is a parent scholar. And a parent scholar is defined as a parenting college or university student. While that definition is very wide, we really want to break down some of the subsections of what that is during this panel. So thank you for coming here today, and we look forward to continuing this conversation.
The goals of our session today are to provide a context for why we centered parent-scholar equity issues in our work, and then also define what our virtual panels are and describe our planning process that we undertook at CSUN. And we'll also provide real-world examples that may apply to your campus if you're interested in offering this vehicle to support students. And lastly, we want to share some outcomes from our virtual panels that have been happening over the past 3 semesters that indicate to us that there's a boost to persistence. So in the overview, in this first section, we wanted to talk about the context for why learning about parent scholars' experiences helps us identify and address equity gaps and disparities in access to resources at our campus. So we'll briefly talk about how state and institutional research here influenced our efforts. In centering the experiences of parent scholars, we wanted to explore whether CSUN parenting students were much different from other CSU parenting students, and whether other CSUs were engaged in efforts to bridge equity gaps. Last summer, the UC Davis School of Education Wheelhouse Center for Community College Leadership and Research published their analysis of the undergraduate student body in California. For the first time, researchers were able to compare parent scholars across the state. Researchers looked at financial aid data from students who attended community colleges, CSU, and UC schools, as well as some private colleges between 2011 and 2018 academic school years. So let me draw your attention to the CSU system. About 12% of the data represents students within one CSU campus. Of that group, 76% were mother scholars, and 26% had already earned their bachelor's degree. The average age was about 34, and average family size was 3.4, and the average family income was about $38,000. So keeping in mind that we want to understand what barriers exist to parent scholars at our own campus, we set out with a clear intention to position the virtual panels to also collect information about this group of students. A year and a half into the process, we are beginning to paint a picture of parenting students in real time and how they navigate the CSUN campus. And this information is helping us advocate to access to campus resources, information, and importance of family-focused communities to support persistence and university completion. And then one specific group of students that I wanted to call out, we've been able to hear from and identify are expecting students. So the annual American College Health Association National Health College Assessment helped us identify the possible number of students on campus who were expecting and had specific needs. The data in the table reflects the percentage of student respondents at CSUN who indicated that pregnancy affected their individual academic performance. While the response rate was less than 10% for each year, we know that expecting parents are a continual part of the student population and can take an educated guess. On our part, we can take an educated guess of the range this might represent campus-wide. Of interest is their experience as both student and expecting parent, and whether their evolving needs are supported sufficiently by our campus to persist and graduate. So just a word about the virtual panels before we get more into detail about them, is that the virtual panels themselves and the efforts they informed are also giving us a better understanding of the needs of parent scholars in real time. With the information collected, we can elevate concerns to campus leaders who are also parent scholar allies. And we're also learning that these needs are very similar to parenting students at other CSU campuses. So a survey of our Parent Scholar Resource Center survey indicated that parent scholars were specifically interested in more family-friendly events on campus, a walk-in childcare space, family counseling versus individual counseling, so a specific emphasis on mental health well-being, healthy eating options on campus, as well as a need for scholarships and expanded tutoring hours. So these are just some examples that are coming up in our surveys, and we're finding that they align and are very similar to what other campuses are experiencing.
So Esther, Tomas, and I planned and participated in these virtual panels within the 2021-2022 academic school year. And we developed a model as we went along that worked for our campus and that we're gladly sharing with you today in the hopes that you might be able to implement a similar format as you work with parent scholars in your own roles. So Esther and I are actually doctoral students with dissertations focused on the experiences of parent scholars while also navigating campus through our own mother scholar and her parent scholar child identity. And Tomas, with his father scholar experience, boosted our efforts by helping us set the stage for community building and experience sharing. So in this section, Esther and I will share the process we took and give examples, our personal examples for each step. So what are virtual parent scholar panels? So it's an online community of parenting students engaged in addressing equity issues with campus stakeholders. So we launched our first parent scholar panel in the fall of 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our university was holding remote learning sessions that accommodated both students and administrative personnel working from home. Anecdotally, we knew that parenting students felt a disconnect from the university campus culture before the pandemic. And this feeling was exacerbated when we transitioned to learning from home. Virtual parent scholar panels were like our response to bring parent scholars together to develop camaraderie around the shared experience, identify barriers toward learning and navigating campus, and work together toward building a more equitable and inclusive environment for parent scholars. Because Esther and I have a mindset toward persistence of parent scholars, it was important for us to connect the panel's efforts to broader equity goals that we will discuss in the last section. Now I'm going to pass it over to Esther.
And we didn't necessarily set out with a concrete 5-point plan for implementing virtual panels for parent scholars, but we actually took a more organic approach because it was important for us to center the experiences of parenting students. So in this section, we'll share our process, how it evolved, and how you can duplicate it at your campus. Before we get into our process, though, it's important to understand how we defined parent-scholar equity. So from the UC Davis School of Education Wheelhouse Center for Community College Leadership and Research 2021 report, we know that parent scholars move through the state college system differently than their non-parenting counterparts. Parent scholars might attend 1 or 2 semesters, then possibly sit out, and then later return to school. We also know that parent scholars enroll both part-time and full-time during their academic journey. Also, findings from the Institute for Women's Policy and Research last year showed that student parents are more likely than students without children to be students of color, 51% compared with 46% of non-parenting students. They also tend to be older. The student parents' median age is 32 compared to 20 years old for dependent students. And the large majority of student parents have 1 or 2 children, about 80%. And over half the children are preschool aged or younger. And then the median debt among student parents enrolled about the 2015-2016 academic year was more than 2.5 times higher than debt among students without children. So Aymie's experience as a mother scholar and my experience as a child of a father scholar really brought more focus on leveling the playing field for parent scholars at our home campus, CSUN. To this effect, what drove our efforts was centering parent-scholar equity in our work, meaning we became advocates for fairness towards parent scholars as it related to access to resources and opportunities so that they can also reach an equal outcome compared to their non-parenting counterparts. So with this in mind, we started with an organic approach that we then developed into a loosely structured model for positioning the virtual panels as vehicles to address equity and promote persistence. We first started with the experience of parent scholars on campus. It was important to us to hear their voices in the sessions first. And we've continued this practice in our session today. For example, Tomas, a father scholar on the panel, opened up our session this morning and reminded us of his lens and the power of his voice. Positioning parenting students to activate their sense of agency was critical for this process to begin. During the virtual panels, we looked for patterns that provided information on parent-scholar challenges to accessing resources and opportunities. When possible, those campus leaders in attendance vocalized support and a commitment to address any high-reward, low-risk issues that could chart immediate success. Post-sessions, post-panels, there was an opportunity through our network to communicate with parent scholars about efforts to address equity issues. Lastly, over the past year, we've been able to review successes and continue our advocacy work through a campus quality fee grant and our Clinton Global University Action projects. So here's our step one. It was to recruit allies. That is, those campus leaders that understood the importance of improving and addressing the parent-scholar experience. So we looked for campus stakeholders and leaders. We're looking for those that can influence process and practices, conducted a meet and greet, invited them to the virtual panels, and identified an ally with infrastructure to support the delivery of the virtual session. So Aymie, what happened at CSUN?
Yeah, so for our own experience, Esther and I were actually Clinton Global University scholars when we first met, and Dr. Jeannie Robertson, who's pictured on the low left, middle section with the pink sweater, she actually connected Esther and I since she realized that we're both focusing on the same population. And this is really where our work and our collaboration, Esther and I's collaboration really took place, and we continue to work together. So Dr. Jeannie Robertson, during she was our mentor for the CGIU at CSUN, and she asked both of us if we were interested in hosting some type of discussion or panel regarding our research with parent scholars. And we were both definitely excited and said, yes, of course. So she reached out to Dr. Aymie Levin, who's pictured on the right. And she's the dean of the graduate studies and had that infrastructure that really was able to support our virtual sessions, but also had the postgraduate students who were also parents. So once she said yes, we were super happy and really started to identify other allies that we wanted to be there at the virtual sessions to hear parent scholar voices.
So step two was recruit the actual parent scholars. And so once the allies were identified and infrastructure secured, we started to look for a diverse range of experiences, parent, grandparent, foster parent, caregivers, and try to identify people that could commit to the time of the parent scholar panels, but then also commit to some preparation to the presentation and the flow and the organization of the actual panels.
Yeah, so with Esther's unique perspective of being the child of a parent scholar and my perspective of being a mother scholar since my undergraduate times at CSUN, Tomas really came in with that father scholar perspective, and Dr. Aymie Levin had reached out to him directly because she knew that he was a father scholar and brought him on board. So we had our 3 different perspectives.
Step 3 is about an audience assessment. Since the goal is to attract as many parent scholars as possible to the virtual panels, we needed to conduct a soft assessment to figure out the best times for the session. And we tried to look for best times, best days, and then also be mindful of not just our academic calendar at CSUN, but then also our children's academic calendars, because sometimes we're not on the same schedule. And so we wanted to make sure that we identified as many possible good days and good times that we can hold this.
Yeah, so we actually learned this the hard way in our first panel discussion. So what happened was that we scheduled it during a usual pickup time for elementary school students. So I actually was running late to pick up my own son. And even though I did let the teacher know that I would be running late because I was presenting, I realized that there are probably other parenting students in the same situation that were picking up their children and that might have even foregone even coming to the virtual session because they weren't able to do both at the same time. So that really opened up our eyes for the next round. And we really started thinking about, okay, how can we work with parenting students, being mindful of drop-off and pickup times for elementary school students and possibly even junior high or high school students, and also being mindful of the administrative leaders and allies that were coming to our sessions because they come in during business hours, which is like usual 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 hours. And that's how we came up with our second time for our second session, which it was more of a collaborative time where people were more available and it didn't run into pick up drop off times for parents.
Yeah, and if you notice, even trying to position these panels as a vehicle to address some equity issues, we're running into our own issues of disparity just around time and availability, and so real life examples here. The next step is step 4. Supporting the panel development, the topic development, and that community building experience. So if you're going to duplicate this model at your campus, one important thing to note is that collaboration is needed to plan the flow and experience of the panel. Since one of the goals is to build an inclusive community for parent scholars, the planning should create space for panelists to co-create that experience. This includes talking about how to invite attendees to participate, for example, opening chats and video feeds. This also includes any norms for sharing experiences and the stakeholders or allies process for acknowledging disparity issues and any follow-up that can be done to address them.
So we met as a team to really develop the flow and came up with what we're mentioning on the screen now. So we wanted to share information about the collective experiences of parent scholars in California, but also the experiences on campuses more specifically, and that these experiences were important and significant.
Step 5 is target outreach. And in this step, we realized that there hadn't been a concerted effort to bring parent scholars together up until this point. Everyone on campus was doing their own surveys, their own communication, their own listservs. And so we didn't really know the best methods to reach this large community. However, we started with offices on campuses where we know where parent scholars might access information and services. It was also important to us that we use various methods to communicate about the event so that we can reach as many folks as possible.
So for us specifically, we shared flyers and emails specifically to like the family housing at CSUN, the Children's Center, the Veteran Centers, and various other centers that were identity-based centers, and the Women's Center, the Graduate Studies, and as well as like informal networks, for example, PSU, which is listed in like the teal. That stands for Parent Scholars United, which at that time, they weren't a formal organization yet established at CSUN. At that time, it was actually a bunch of student parents meeting on their own time every week. And so we reached out to them as well. And I'm actually a member and a co-founder of Parent Scholars United. And we really just reached out to our own networks of parenting students that we had informally, and really just did more so intentionally the second round as we saw how well our first panel discussion had gone.
Step 6 is about managing RSVPs and that access to technology. So going back to step 1, recruit allies, you'll want your partners to have the infrastructure to host virtual panels and also manage the registration. So you can work with your allies to embed questions in the registration that will help sustain the community of parent scholars beyond the virtual panel, and then make it easier for them to communicate with one another. And so the emails and the RSVP let us know who to follow up with and the ratio of registrations to attendees for this new type of programming. Additionally, our campus had a laptop loan program. So if parent scholars wanted to connect with us on the panels but didn't have the physical resources to do so, we communicated options for accessing that laptop loan program.
Yeah, and so with that, we were able to have 60% of our audience be mother scholars for both of our sessions. And during our first panel specifically, we had a couple of father scholars, besides our beloved Tomas. And we, for our second session, even though we didn't have father scholars besides Tomas, we did have expecting students in the room. So we had a few mother scholars who were expecting students as well. And it was a great process, and we received great feedback. And because of that, they continue to happen every semester at CSUN.
So we'd like to again thank everybody for being here. Step 7, hold virtual panels to students' experience. This is a little space to share our experience within the different experiences of the panelists, as well as the people that were present during the panels. We felt that a lot of emotions were shared. And those emotions, for some, were super healing. They mentioned how they were able to shed tears within the group. And an elder of ours, or of mine, told me that tears are always very sacred because man can't create water, and tears are the only water that man or woman can create. So we really enjoy those tears, and we're grateful for them. Within my experience, I shedded a lot of tears while being a father scholar. I am the father of a type 1 diabetic daughter. So as anybody knows about that disease, that illness, it's a chronic illness. There's no cure. Whatever my daughter eats, she needs insulin for. So sometimes as a child, we'll sneak candy, but when she sneaks candy, her blood sugar goes to 400. And my wife and I have to stay up most of the night trying to get it back down to 80 so that she can have a good school experience the next day. That is not very conducive for an educational experience when you're staying up all night to study as well as watch blood sugars. It was really trying. So within my experience as a student, I was able to share that with the panel, my colleagues, as we grew together, as well as the people who attended our virtual panels. And they reflected that back and really talked about how parents with special needs children really struggle in school, and how there's not a big space for them to stick their voice or place their voice. So I just really want to say thank you to my colleagues for starting this organization. And we hope that you're able to reflect this organization back on your campuses and institutions, so that people like myself do have a place to shed those tears and get that healing, so that they can contain the grit for their children to see them graduate like I did, and have my daughters want to go on and go to college also because they were able to see me graduate. So I'd like you to share that with you. I just really appreciate you listening, and I want to pass it back to my colleague, Esther.
Thank you, Tomas. The last step of our model is step 8, debriefing with stakeholders. And so this is an opportunity for us to reconnect with our allies, partners, and stakeholders to discuss any specific actions that they can take based on the issues they heard in the student panels. And so this is also an opportunity to think about ways that we can share that these actions are being taken with, and sharing them back to the community of parent scholars.
So in our experience, we would stay after the panels and debrief with Dr. Levin. And we also had follow-up meetings with the various leaders that were in the room. And we had such great outcomes after that because we had leadership buy-in. So Dr. Levin went out and started advocating for parent scholars and what she heard in the panelists, and also formatted her own committee with the undergraduate studies dean herself. And Esther and I were invited to partake in some of those meetings with also the University Counseling Services, the person leading the parenting support group. So it was great to have those debriefs, and that wasn't the only committee that formed, and there was a lot of various collaborations that happened where Esther and I were really invited into those spaces, and us being able to share the stories that we heard and brought in, and sharing Tomas's story. It was a great way to just keep advocating for the parent scholars within our institution. And we hope that y'all can replicate it as well. I'm going to pass it over to Tomas, and he's going to go ahead and do a quick energizer.
Okay, so everyone, could you please glance at your screens in front of you? We have a statement here. We'd really like you to type in the chat the end of this statement. I think parent scholars are. It's a very broad statement. Please put in maybe 1, 2, 3 words, and we will respond to those chats. For myself, I would just like to say, I think parent scholars are resilient. I think that we have a ton of grit. I think also that we are reciprocal in our knowledge, because in this process, we're also sharing with our children as they reflect that youthful knowledge back to us. So I believe those are my thoughts about what being a parent scholar is. We hope to hear a bunch of your thoughts also.
All right, so I'm going to talk more about the panel outcomes as we continue to learn from our 2021 Parent Scholar virtual panels experience. Specifically, the panels contributed to increased cross-campus collaborations, like I mentioned, and the launch of a Parent Scholar Resource Center in this semester, fall 22. So I'm going to get into more detail about that. So these are just a few of the collaborators and those who have been working in working with parent scholars and providing some type of support. But we've also gained a lot more momentum and collaboration between each other. And we actually meet at least once a month within a parent scholar affinity group. So the Institute for Community Health and Wellbeing, that's actually where I and Esther really were able to gain partnership, and were able to write, co-author a proposal for the campus quality fee. And we were funded to do the Parent Scholar Resource Center, which is a virtual center for now, because we haven't secured space, like physical space within the campus. But through that virtual center, we're able to provide different things. So one of them is the virtual hub that happens once a week, where parent scholars can come into the room and meet with each other, and they can ask questions to different reps. So this last one, say we had we had the Campus Care Resource Center, which is a partner, an external partner that provides childcare for children as early as infancy. And then we had the Parent Scholars United president in a different breakout room, providing information about Parent Scholars United at the org. And we also had the Vita Clinic, which is a resource that we have on the CSUN campus where students can get answers regarding any taxes questions that they might have. So it was great to get the feedback from parent scholars and from the reps in the room. And it provides quick access for parent scholars since it's held through Zoom. But we also get that exposure that these reps hadn't really thought of before, and they always come back and say, "Oh wow, we realized that we can tweak some of our programming to really meet the needs of parent scholars as well, and be more inclusive." So the other aspect of the Parent Scholar Resource Center is our mentorship program. We're piloting a peer mentorship program where parent scholars get mentored by another parent scholar who has been at CSUN navigating these resources for more than a year. So that's really new for our campus, and it's really great. And we have all our information through a Canvas page. So students are easily able to enroll themselves, and it pops up like any other course. The Graduate Studies Office, that's where the Parent Scholar panel has been homed. And they've just been going every semester, and this semester they actually just had it this last Friday, and with 3 new parent scholars, and it was a great experience. We were able to be audience members and really just provide not only resources, but again, our perspective with the new parent scholars in the room that had just recently transferred to CSUN. And again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's been such great outcomes with all these partners, and there's several more that aren't even mentioned here that they're just building on the resources and really just tweaking little things here and there to be more inclusive and more mindful that parent scholars weren't able to access their resources before. And then these are more of the community building efforts. So like we said, parent scholar panels really brought that community. We had parent scholars in the room just sharing. It was really organic, really like a safe space. Like Tomas mentioned, there was tears. I know I cried. I know Dr. Levin cried. As people shared their stories and experiences, both the good and the bad, it was such a great way to build that parent scholar community, and letting parent scholars know that we're not actually alone, even though a lot of them did feel that they were alone before this event. And the middle one, that's Parent Scholars United, as I've mentioned. And thanks to the parenting support group provided by University Counseling Services and the ability to be virtual, we were really able to establish this org during the spring semester. So we're a brand new org, one of the co-founders, and it's the first student parent-led org on campus, and it's been great. There's parent scholars can now go into our Matador Involvement Center for CSUN, and they can scroll through the clubs and orgs and see that there's an org that's parent friendly. So we've been getting very great feedback for that. They're very happy that they don't feel like they're ignored anymore, and they feel like they can, they have a community right there just waiting for them with open arms. And the last picture is actually the University Village Apartments, which is the family housing at CSUN. And with Parent Scholars United, we've been really able to take over free items that our different partners and collaborators have given us. So there's been a lot of great events happening at CSUN with a lot of free resources available, a lot of free school supplies, etc. And they've been able to secure some items so that we can then take it over to the family housing and spread them on a table and provide them the right there, right in their recreation center. They could just walk down there with their children and choose whatever they want or need from the table. And it's been great. We've gotten a lot of great feedback from the residents there, and they feel like they are not forgotten anymore. A lot of them still don't go to campus because they're mostly virtual. They choose to be virtual, some of them as well. So they don't go off to campus a lot, or they can't make it sometimes because it's the scheduling with children's schedules and their schedules and work schedules and just the scheduling conflicts. Sometimes they don't make it on campus and they miss out on all these events. So we've been able this semester to really secure items and take it back over there. And it's been wonderful.
The virtual student panels created 3 vehicles that we are beginning to see: impacts, persistence, and sense of belonging. We described the campus partnerships with leaders who committed to addressing parent-scholar needs. Then Aymie spoke to the cross-campus collaborations with others doing work in the same space, and how we are continuing to align ourselves in a concerted effort to address equity gaps in parent-scholars' experiences. Due to these efforts, we have seen structural improvements that have impacted persistence, specifically in parent scholars' transition from other colleges into CSUN or transition into their full-time or part-time role as a student as well. One factor that's made this transition a little easier is the increased access to campus leaders and decision makers who have made a commitment to engaging directly with parent scholars. We are also intentional about using the 2-gen model in our work, combining parent and child strategies to support a whole family approach to educational success. We believe the 2-gen model keeps parent scholars engaged on multiple levels and connects students to a community of other parents experiencing CSUN in similar ways. This can be seen in the first of its kind student organization dedicated to parenting students, the Parent Scholars United Group, which Aymie touched upon in the previous section. And we have structured our Parent Scholar Mentorship Program to focus specifically on building personal efficacy skills to ensure parent scholars feel they can continue on their next semester and beyond to graduate. We've started to collect data, so our sample size is small. However, we are seeing some interesting trends that we will continue to explore further. About 37.5% of CSUN parents surveyed say they have previously stayed out 3 or more semesters before returning to school. The most frequent reasons were attributed to taking on a caregiver role on a full-time basis, whether it was a child or elder family member, and the need to work more than 40 hours a week due to specific family circumstances. Of interest here is why they returned and what campus can do to ease that re-entry transition. About 80% of parent scholars felt that the CSUN community did not understand them, which echoes the importance of connecting campus decision makers and students via the virtual panel experience. And 92% said that regardless of their experience, they expected to graduate within the next 4 semesters, which was good to hear on our end. So these are some of the connections we're beginning to see as we continue to elevate virtual panels for parent scholars to be able to share their experiences and their needs at CSUN. So with that, we'd like to open it up for questions, Q&A, and feel free to drop your questions in chat or to come off mute in just a moment. Thank you.